Chris, I think you missed your calling.
Sorry, but the new intro
Have
is
a
like,
ton of hair.
yeah,
Get yourself a guitar
it
and
kind of
start
brings
just
out my inner Beavis and Butthead, that new intro. But anyway, welcome to Hobby Hotline. It's Tuesday, March the 31st, 2023, episode 233. I'm Chris Harris from Stale Gum, Baseball Cardpedia, and the new Hobby News Daily. And I'm joined by Uncle Rich Klein, and making his final appearance on Hobby Hotline, Ryan Nolan. How are you, gentlemen?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing just great. It would be great. I think this is going to be one of those shows because there really wasn't much happening in the hobby this week where we could use some good callers. So I'm going to post the link in the chat. So as we are recording this, for those of you who are listening to this on our podcast, the championship game of the World Baseball Classic is happening. It is in the top of the fifth, 3-1 Japan, 2 out, and Ariando at the plate. Is this great or what? I don't know about you, but the first couple of World Baseball Classics really weren't, I guess, from an American perspective, they were kind of like out there, who cares? But this one's felt a little different. It's felt kind of, I think Major League Baseball wanted the WBC to be when it created it, back in the mid-2000s. What do you guys think of this year's World Baseball Classic? Have you been watching it?
I definitely see a lot more people talking about it on social media. There's some data analysis as well showing some of the Trey Turner home runs and how many views they got right away. I mean, it's a good thing that baseball is respected worldwide and so many people are tuning into it. And I think like the impact on our hobby side of things too. I know there's a few different World Baseball Classic sets. I'm not too familiar with what's out there today. I just know in the past they made like Topps Tribute, I think it was World Baseball Classic, and they made it
10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that set. Damn, it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I remember watching some of the case breaks on YouTube for that type of stuff back in the day. But I mean, I think in the future, another 4 years, or it's not 4 years, but it'll be another 3 years or so, especially as Fanatics takes over Realms a lot more. There's going to be more set releases. And I think international distribution would be really cool. I mean, like there's a lot of baseball collectors that collect international cards from Venezuela. There's now Japanese baseball sets that Topps produces. Be cool to see some more sets from home countries that feature MLB players or players in the World Baseball Classic as limited releases.
Topps now, I believe, is doing WBC cards, literally Topps now. So they're coming out almost immediately. This is something they weren't doing as much even the last time there was a WBC.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing with the WBC this year compared to all the others is it, as Ryan has said, it crystallized a lot of, if you see Winter League Baseball, the fans are having a good time. It's not like in America where they try to cajole you to having a good time. They are into every Winter League game, just about. It's exciting. It's fun. The players are having fun. The players do, the players, I'm going to use the word show off.
They love it.
That's the wrong term, but the players get to express themselves. And if they get to express themselves in the WBC and the fans get into it, and it's really worldwide, as you pointed out, it's a win because, March is pretty much a dead, strangely enough, a dead time in the American sports calendar.
Wow.
You have the NCAA, March Madness.
Yeah.
Football's waiting for the draft. Hockey and basketball are in the final weeks of their regular season. They're not in the playoffs. March is a great time for a tournament. And so there's a vacuum. Nature, what's the saying? Nature abhors a vacuum. Well, all of a sudden, you've got exciting baseball. Edgar Diaz might tend to disagree. Jose Altuve may tend to disagree. But, players get hurt in exhibition games. I read where a guy is going to be out at, I forgot what team it is, but he got hit by a pitch. He's going to be out for 3 months. Gavin Lux running the bases in the first exhibition game, tore something in his leg. He's out for the season. Injuries happen everywhere. So Keith Olbermann, no Keith. I hate to tell you this, but injuries happen at the weirdest places, and don't blame the WBC for it at all. I mean, Diaz and Altuve, they're probably playing winter ball. They're keeping themselves in shape. Those are just injuries that happen.
I just wish that the pitchers in America played for the team because our pitching staff this year was really weak. Imagine if we got like a DeGrom, Scherzer, and Verlander in there, and I like way different tournament at that point.
Well, DeGrom, now that he's pitching in Texas, to be honest, with the way he's not pitched a full season for I don't know how many years now, I can understand why the Rangers says, let's not do this because it's high stress innings. Verlander and Scherzer, they're veterans. They probably could have adjusted their schedule accordingly. Neither of them are well known for having major arm issues. I think Verlander came back very strong last year, and Scherzer's never really had an arm injury.
And Kershaw couldn't even get insured for the WBC. He tried playing for the team, but no one would accept an insurance policy.
Not even Lloyd's of London. Wow. But I did read something this afternoon that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, this is really MLB's tournament who's organizing and running this, but he wants to get more and more MLB pitchers into this tournament.
You have to
see, the DeGroms and Scherzers and Verlanders pitching in the next one. Well, maybe not Scherzer. He's what? 38.
Scherzer and Verlander will both be in their mid-40s by the next tournament, and DeGrom will be almost 40. So I think we can skip those.
You never know. I mean, they're still pitching right now at a high level, late 30s. So add 3 more years. I mean, after you get your Tommy John surgeries, it seems like a lot of pitchers last way longer.
There are pitchers out there who want to have Tommy. It sounds strange, but you hear young pitchers, when I say young, 18, 19, they want to have Tommy John surgery.
Get it over with.
Get it over with, but they're taking a tendon from a different part of your body. I know, Ryan, with all the working out you do, you're probably aware of this. Your arm actually gets stronger usually after Tommy John surgery. Every once in a while it doesn't work, but usually your arm actually is better after it.
That is true. And the surgery has improved so much since the first one. And funny enough, like my old pitching coach was the second person ever to get the Tommy John surgery.
Who was your old pitching coach?
Oh, man. The name's escaping me right now. I can look it up real quick. He used to be a coach for the Yankees and also athletics.
But look it up. I'm curious.
So why?
I know his name was Jill, I think, but I can't remember. Hold on. Or Gil.
Gil Patterson?
Gil Patterson. There we go.
See, all you had to do was say Yankees and Gil, and it's the 70s.
Yeah, it was escaping me for a second, but he used to teach me a lot of stuff, and he's like the father of the cutter or something like that, too, if I remember correctly. Really nice guy.
So while we're discussing the WBC, and this is a trading card podcast, ostensibly, WBC trading cards. I know there have been card elements to this tournament, dating back to the beginning, but they've kind of been out there, but they really haven't been embraced by the hobby because I think A, the players are not in their MLB uniforms, and B, you have a lot of teams that have a lot of players that aren't MLB stars or don't even play aren't even prospects. They play out in like some weird European league, like the Dutch league or something. Do you think that having this tournament with all these players who don't play in MLB and are not prospects, would that hurt a WBC themed set, or would the novelty of having so many players from other leagues coming in would that help it?
I think if you want to hit the international crowd, you have to have that because people are rooting on for their home country. Now, card collecting baseball cards is very American centric on that side of things. So people still in America chase prospects and rookies, and they still want to have a big name. I mean, if you have Trout autographs in there, people are still going to want that. Even stars like Arenado or Turner Swin will still want to have those type of cards. But if there's a huge international prospect, people will flood into that product. I mean, if Shohei Ohtani was a prospect in this offseason and he had cards in WBC, right? Before any like official rookie card or something like that, people would be going and buying every single product off the shelf. And you don't know for sure like what happens with some of these younger guys in other countries. Like eventually they get drafted or eventually sign with the team. And then sure, they might come a prospect. I mean, most won't. But at the same time, isn't that the same thing with like Bowman? Most of these prospects end up being in single A, maybe double A if that. Most fail. I mean, even looking at top 10 prospects year after year, how many are in the MLB right now? And how many of them are in the MLB 5 years, after they first get called up? This week, I think it was Mark Appel that finally got released by the Phillies, if I remember correctly. And he was highly touted. His cards were going for quite a few dollars. I think he was like a 2014 Bowman Chrome, but could be wrong on the specific year. Well, like, Bowman's the same exact thing. It's literally a lottery in a sense with prospecting. You could have someone that has great stats in the minor leagues and they don't translate it to the major leagues. And then you have flukes in the minor leagues that you're like, this guy's not going to do great. And they perform exceptionally well in the majors. So, I mean, the same thing could be said with WBC.
I will also point out there have been some great stories and some great future stories this year. How about that kid, I believe, from Nicaragua, who struck out the three guys from the Dominican Republic and got signed immediately by a Tiger scout.
Tigers. That was cool to see.
Whether he ever pitches in the major leagues, that's a great card. You want that card just because it's such a great story. He struck out three good players. I believe Juan Soto was among them. I mean, as Collector's Dream just said, yes, he's going to get an opportunity to play professional baseball. Japan has that 21-year-old guy, I think Suzuki's his name, throws the 102-mile-per-hour fastball. This could very well be his first Topps card if he's got any sort of, if Topps has the right to do that. Wouldn't it be cool to have a card of him 3 or 4 years before he gets posted?
It would be really cool. The one thing though I wish is they would have regional releases for WBC. So like each of the countries in their tournament had like cards that were stamped with the country flags. And then you have like another level of scarcity of it. You can complete the rainbow of getting a card from each different country.
Well, I'm a big fan of anything that brings interesting people to cards. One of the old jokes, and this was in the 90s, and Chris knows this, and I know, Ryan, you weren't really born then, but...
No, 98, so I'm a bit young. Well, not really young anymore.
But... anything... Donruss Leaf playoff was doing like 96. They would have the same 100 players in every football set. The base set, and then they might do some interesting inserts, but you were getting the same players. Anything that gives you different players and you're still getting a bunch of stars. That's the good thing with this. You're getting enough stars where people are getting good cards. And then you're getting people to fill out the step that, hey, I run a show from a synagogue. Could you imagine if we got all these Israeli cards and handed them away to people in our synagogue? Hey, look at this, 6 years ago, whenever there was the last tournament, the Israeli team was the surprise hit of the tournament. Everybody would have wanted those cards. So I'm fine with that. And I am fine with the more variety, the better. And yes, Kevin Jones, you're absolutely right. He did strike out those three guys, if I remember correctly, or something close. And as I said, he got signed immediately after the game. The Tiger Scouts, there's this.
He was probably on some radars though before then. They're like, all right, this guy's make sure to watch him.
Yeah, let's sign him out. He may have been on the radar, but he got signed. That was like, wait a second, this guy can strike out major leaguers? Yeah.
Let's get him one.
It's like, take a look at some of the comments in the chat. Kendrys Morales got hurt. Yeah, I remember that. It was the same thing that happened to Diaz. Some guy on the Angels I think it was Morales who hit like a walk-off homer. And as he was rounding third and coming to the plate, the whole team was celebrating, and he like snapped his ACL in the
And he
process.
jumped on the plate, and in the process,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
so
and
it
he was
happened.
like top 5 in the MVP balloting the previous year, and he was never really the same player again. Let's say to our friend Antonio, all the way from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Shout out to all our Mexican friends. Hello, everyone from Collector's Dream. Let's see here. Evening, all. We had a great show this weekend here in Syracuse at the New York State Fairgrounds. I was in that area of the country this weekend. I went up to Montreal to see my soccer team get absolutely jobbed by bad refereeing. But on the way home on Sunday, I went to a card show in Albany, and it was pretty packed. So yeah,
Well, both of you went to the Philly show.
we
Yep.
both went to the Philly show. The first time we got to meet each other in
Yep.
person. I was there Sunday. Were you there all 3 days or just Sunday?
Just Saturday and Sunday, but
Saturday
like
and
Saturday.
Sunday. It was
It was packed on Saturday.
packed
And
on
we got-
Saturday. It was actually a pretty decent crowd for Sunday. I usually don't go Sundays. I usually go Fridays.
Usually Sundays are dead for a show.
Yeah.
Like, just in the afternoon. There was a good crowd there still. Like it was packed. I was kind of shocked with it being 3 big card shows that weekend that there was still such a large crowd. Now, don't get me wrong, like not all the modern guys showed up to Philly. They still stayed in Dallas. It's more of a modern card show, but like across the board, I mean, there was good traffic there. How was Dallas?
We had at ComC, we had our normal. We literally just about hit our average of drop-offs. It was, we saw a lot of people. The Thursday night was very slow, but that was also because there was major storms in Dallas Thursday night. So the people who traveled to spend the extra money just couldn't get there.
Makes sense.
So it didn't get going until like 2:00 on Friday. And from 2:00 Friday through the end of the day Saturday, it was very busy. And Sunday after trade night, the official trade night, and the moving of the clocks forward, Sunday was an average Sunday, which is kind of slow.
Yeah, but always Friday, Saturdays good at Dallas. Philly was one of the first, not I wouldn't say first shows, but you had Fanatics show up there, and then they showed up also to Chicago this past weekend too, scouting out both shows.
Well, I believe Fanatics is based out of Chicago, or they have a big Chicago presence. So for them to go to Chicago is really not a big thing. And Ruben has owned the Philadelphia Sixers, or a piece of them.
So, it
So
makes
for
sense.
him being in Philly is not a big deal. And that's very smart. I rarely ever saw Topps executives at any shows ever.
That's
they
surprising
would
me.
do whatever they would do at the National, but they wouldn't even come usually on the show floor.
I mean,
you
that
know.
surprises me though, like for how big the manufacturer is, and especially with all the shows happening. I mean, shows today are way different than they were in the past, but still, like that's your target demographic most of the time.
Right, but the show is still the best place to meet the most amount of people as quickly as possible. You're still at a good show gathering as many people as you can with reasonable alacrity. So it's meeting at the show. I can set up at a store, but I may not meet many people for various reasons. At a show, a good show, you're going to see a whole bunch of good dealers. You're going to hopefully see a whole bunch of good collectors, and you get to talk to them. And Fanatics can probably do both old and new.
Yeah, they can. I mean, especially so like Chicago probably leans 70% vintage, 30% modern. Philly's probably 80-20 vintage to modern. So I assume they're probably going to hit up a modern card show. Well, I guess you have that, what is it, Mint, that's in Las Vegas. I'm sure they'll be at that one. But they'll probably hit up another large one, probably like a Burbank, or I think what's like Union, also out in California. So most of those are going to be all modern.
Mint Collective is really not as much of a card show as it is a business. It's right. It really evolved from what I heard this year into even more of a business adventure. And frankly, as I think I've said, if I were 20, 30 years younger and looking for a job in the hobby, I save up money to go to the Mint Collective because that's where I can meet the most amount of people who are in the hobby in the most efficient manner. And I think it's great if you're interested in learning more about how the business works, because you're going to meet a lot of movers and shakers at the Mint Collective. You don't have to spend the hundreds of dollars for all the panels, even though that's a nice bonus if you've got that money. You want to be meeting people.
It's not so much the industry summit anymore.
The industry summit's good if you want to be a dealer. Industry summit's good if you want to learn more about, you're already in the business and you want to do more business. To me, industry summit is more of a, let's say I want to deal with breakers. If I want to become a breaker, or I want to learn how to do braking, or I want to learn how to do retail stores, or I want to work for there, I'd go to the industry summit. But if I want to work in a more corporate thing in the hobby, I'd go to the Mint Collective. In the national, you can do both.
Plus a super large card show, which will take all your time.
Yes.
All right. Let me just address another comment here.
I think the Mint Collective is a great idea.
I'll have to check it out next year.
All right. Comment top left of panel.
We could use you full time in some form of the hobby. I know you're almost full time already, but ditch the engineering job. We need you full time.
Well, if any company needs data and wants to hire someone, I might be interested.
Okay.
Depends on what it is.
All right. Comment in the chat, top left of panel. I guess they're referring to me. You ever lived in Florida?
It's like the most random question.
Yeah. No. But I did live in Mississippi for a year, but no, I've been to Florida.
I live in Florida.
Yes, you are from Florida.
I've been to Florida.
Let's not talk about that yet. Let's talk about the Fanatics deal with the NHL. So it was announced, I believe, yesterday that beginning not next season, but 2024-2025, Fanatics will take over from Adidas the right to produce NHL jerseys. I read on UniWatch, which is a great website if you're interested in the business of jerseys, that Fanatics is going to keep making this. The actual jerseys are going to still be made in the same factory in a small town in Quebec. The only thing that's going to change is the branding. Instead of an Adidas logo on the back of the collar, it's just going to be a Fanatics jersey. Fanatics logo. So
I thought I saw where they got the right to put the flag on the front of the jersey too.
Yeah, it's funny because the NHL is the only league where the front of the jersey doesn't have a brand marking on it. Baseball started when they went to Nike a couple of years ago. They added the swoosh on the front. I think the NFL has the Nike swoosh on the sleeve. The NBA has it up front. MLS has the Adidas logo up front. Yeah, the NHL is the only one that has their brand on the back of the jersey, which I don't know, whatever. But again, here we go. Fanatics, they're taking over. This apparently is a 10-year contract with the NHL. So, what do you think?
Do we see them sneaking into cards or purchasing Upper Deck? That's at least a possibility.
Well, I'll tell you this much: will Upper Deck in 2 years airbrush out all those Fanatics logos on the front of the card?
Ooh. I didn't think about that. That'll be some interesting.
I mean, think about it. They get to advertise Fanatics on Upper Deck's cards.
That's actually pretty hilarious. Are they going to put Fanatics patches on
yes, if I read correctly, they do get to put like the Fanatics flag on the front of the jerseys.
Well, I'm saying people chase obviously like the patch cards and one-on-ones and different things like that. It's gonna be kind of funny getting an upper deck card with the huge Fanatics
Big
patch.
Fanatics logo on it.
That would be great. That mean, as you said, I just realized that it's like, ooh, that is good marketing, and
That's hilarious, though, if you think about it. That's so funny.
You know, I've got a question for the people. We have several people here who set up at the Syracuse show, so I'm going to sidetrack to shows for a second. The promoter, Lynn Lake, who's been doing the Syracuse show since way back in the day. I remember going to some of the early ones when I was at Beckett. It was a good show then. It's a good show now. So he's done a great job keeping it going. But it became a little bit of a hobby media frenzy is the wrong word, but a discussion when he put up that sign about collectors, please don't sell cards to other collectors at the show. And I was wondering whether that unenforceable rule was brought up again, or that it's quietly been, said, well, okay, I realize that's not what I really meant to say. And we sort of went back to normal for this show.
How can you enforce that, though?
Well, they tried at the Dallas Card Show about 6 months ago, 3-4 shows ago, no outside food. And the Dallas, it's all well and good, except you've got 2 food trucks outside. So is that considered outside food? Second, on top of it, if I bring in a bag with a sandwich, how are you going to stop me from bringing in the bag? Are you going to have a guard check every bag that walks in the door? I understood what they were trying to do, but that's
it's unenforceable. I mean, imagine having your slab cases that you walk around. All right, we're going to start putting sandwiches in there and start
putting a sandwich in your
sandwich box.
Ion box.
Ion sandwich box. Or fill it with a bunch of sodas. Just walk right in.
To the credit of the food trucks, I mean, it's a little more expensive, but the cans of soda are still only $2 outside, which for a card show is not as bad as some places.
Yeah.
Other comments.
Outside food is the food trucks are reasonably priced too. So, to the credit, it's not as bad as some shows for the, let's say, if you don't want to walk across the street to the 8 zillion places in the mall where I actually work.
There's so much food nearby. I mean, when I go to Dallas, I'll walk that mile to Torchy's. It's so good.
To where?
Torchy's Tacos.
Oh, yes.
They're supposed to open one in Florida, and it was supposed to open last year. Still not done. Then they said spring this year. Still no information on it. It's like, come on, finish the building. Like, I would like to have a Torchy's.
Torchy's Tacos come up with some of the most. Every month they have the most innovative flavors because I make sure I stay on their mailing list.
Oh, they change it every month?
There's a flavor of the month every month.
Ooh.
So
I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to go back, hopefully in May again, to Dallas and get Torchy's.
Okay, so we did see a couple people saying that sign apparently may not have been up for this show, and that's good to see.
Was also at Syracuse show. Pleasantly surprised with foot traffic. Most dealers willing to negotiate. Most vintage overpriced, unfortunately.
That happens a lot at the Northeast.
Yeah. Went to the Friday night show. It was busy, vintage, expensive. Didn't see that sign. I didn't notice the sign, and some attendees were looking to trade, but I didn't see a lot of people trying to sell on the side either. Great crowd, lots of kids, and something for everyone. So I guess I got to get up there to Syracuse. I mean,
Chris, it's worth your time. If you've never been there, you need to go there once.
All right. Question: has the NIL world evolved at the rate you guys thought it would? Personally, I thought we would be seeing more college products by now.
I mean, you have Bowman Chrome U. I mean, but like if you think about it in the baseball side, with all the different levels of minor league baseball, that's kind of like the Bowman Chrome U of baseball side of things. I think if Bowman Chrome U football expands out and becomes a little bit more popular, maybe you see a push towards baseball, and then who knows what's going to happen with basketball as well. I mean, they just did a McDonald's set. Was that
McDonald's All-American set? Yeah.
I'm not a basketball collector by any means, so I could be saying everything wrong. But they just did a McDonald's set, I've heard, and that could be college athletes. So I do see it happening. I mean, you got to remember, NIL just happened. It does take some time to develop products and also market it to a new audience, because your people that collect just your normal rookie cards, they might not be into college cards. So it's a whole new demographic that you're going to have to chase after and get people used to chasing those type of cards.
I will say I thought I saw, and I'm not going to say I remember perfectly, but they are going to have some of these Bowman U cards are going to be the players in their college uniforms. And in that case, it's really important because, especially for football, and I don't remember which sports are doing what. And please, if somebody knows the absolutely correct answer, I will not take any offense if you post it. So I'm going from memory. But let's say, university in Nebraska or Alabama or Arkansas, they don't have major league teams. They have college. It's the University of Alabama. Nick Saban's won all those national championships. Arkansas, that's the sport. Oklahoma State football. You put players from those teams in their football uniforms, even if they're not and don't go to the NFL, people collect them. They will be heavily collected in those home areas because they will be legitimate cards, and then you get some of them signed. We've seen some police sets come through with signatures in every set. It does take some time, as Ryan pointed out, but I think it's I think we will see continued growth in that. And let's just say, not just from the good-looking ladies part of the world, that LSU gymnast or the Cavender twins in Miami. I guarantee you put those people on cards. They'll, I know Brian.
Leaf did already.
What?
So Leaf did already, and they got
Leaf did already. Yeah.
What I was going to say though,
game.
You know how I think Fanatics or Tops could really expand this out a lot faster too, is if in their Bowman Crow University set they have like legacy autographs of some past Heisman winners or like some of the famous coaches, and also throw that in the product. So then people are chasing also the legacy side of it, and then kind of reel in, because like if you had Nick Saban autographs in there, I can guarantee you Alabama fans are going to be ripping that product to grab it. Or if you throw in some famous Nebraskans, what was that one coach? I don't know if he passed away or
Tom
not.
Osborne.
Tom Osborne. Is he okay? You put a Tom Osborne autograph in there, like that'll be a huge chase card for people in Nebraska. So I think right now, just having all modern players is kind of a miss on that side of things. If you want to get people really into the product, you have to put some of those legacies. I mean, like imagine having like a dual or a triple Heisman autograph of quarterbacks from schools. Like there's so many different ways they could really market it to get people into it, I think.
Here's the greatest football game ever played, 1971, Nebraska, Oklahoma, 37-35. Johnny Rodgers won a Heisman Trophy. He's still living. Greg Pruitt had a great NFL career. He was playing for Oklahoma at the time. You have enough guys. And that Ed Marinaro was just signing at the Dallas Card Show. He was second in the Heisman in 1971 and became an actor on Hill Street Blues. There's enough legacy, as Ryan says, there's enough legacy people where you could combine the best of yesterday and today.
Yeah, I lived in Nebraska for 3 years in the 90s, and then and I suppose even now, guys like Johnny Rodgers and Tom Osborne, those guys are like gods there in Nebraska. So yeah, I think that would work. So
and you find them with the current players in Oklahoma, and he won a Heisman Trophy, and he's very he or his team is very social media savvy, and he happens to be a nice guy to meet at the shows. Because I've met him a couple of times, gotten autographs a couple of times. He's just a good player, a good player to meet at a show. And there's a lot of others like that. Also it becomes a great signing opportunity for a promoter at a show. You live near Oklahoma City, you can bring the players in. You can now have them, if they can fix it where they can wear the uniforms, you can have them sign cards or sign photos at your store to bring people in. And they'll, it's a few $100s or $1,000 to bring in, players into a store. That is a great idea. To me,
now you get college collectors too. I mean, if you're in college and hey, I want to go collect the whole set of my team and get some of those signed, easy way to get the youth into it, right?
I've collected people from where I went to college over the years. Unfortunately, since two of them are Lou Gehrig and Eddie Collins, doing cards from when they were playing in their career is kind of not possible.
No bargain bins there.
Plus my bank account has like a whole bunch of zeros it currently doesn't have.
So we mentioned this product in passing, but Topps, I think it was either today or yesterday, announced that they were going to make Topps Chrome McDonald's All-American Basketball. And one of the players that is not on the checklist, not yet, is a guy that they announced a couple of weeks ago was going to be signing for them. And that's Bronny James, LeBron James Jr. Do you think that Bronny James is eventually going to be in this product or not? What is the deal with Bronny James and Topps? When will we see him first?
So this is just complete tinfoil hat stuff. But what if they announced at the same time that LeBron moves over? There's a lot of rumors right now that LeBron's going to move over exclusive rights to Fanatics for autographs. What if they just did both at the same time, announced you can get both autographs? Or it's like some type of SSSP or something like that in the product where it's not on the checklist, then someone ends up pulling it and it has all this social media talk about the card. I mean, because they're doing that right now with Top Series 1. They still have like this 4 SSP or something like that. No one's even discovered that yet, whatever it is. But you never know like what type of marketing games they play.
I will tell you that I saw while I was doing ID work for ComC, not one of those cards, but just a normal SSP card. Yeah. I will tell you, those cards are really, it's very obvious how much they stick out that they're SSPs. And I was glad to see that.
Yes.
I mean, I'd like to see the numbering of the other parallels be a little clearer, but that's a minor flaw. But the SSPs look really good. If you're a collector, you have it immediately.
There's no more breaking out the magnifying glass and having to decipher some.
But those are the best bargain bins, right?
Where I had to use the magnifying glass to see who the player was and the card number. That's like a double no-no. At least give me one of the two where I can actually read it.
Yeah. So Topps at their industry summit a couple of weeks ago was teasing that they were going to have this special announcement. And it would be by the end of they would announce it by the end of this month. And it would be this unbelievable, incredible, it'll change the hobby, whatever. What do you suppose this is?
I'm still sticking with my guns. I think it's the LeBron. Because, I mean, if you think about like modern basketball collectors, a lot of them love LeBron. Like that's kind of their idol on that side of things. I mean, sure, you have still the MJ versus LeBron debates, but that's a huge autograph to move over there. I mean, if they got MJ as well, which I think is Upper Deck exclusive, people would go crazy on the basketball side of things. I really couldn't think of anything else. I mean, unless they bought out Panini, but last I've heard that deal hasn't gone through or like it's been stalled or something like that. Although I don't really have any big sources or anything like that. So I'd be leaning towards that autograph deal, but I don't think it's the biggest hobby thing ever, how they've been portraying it, but at least it's good for the news cycle.
I expect if there's going to be an announcement, it will be made at Mint Collective. Beckett has, and we, our Hobby News Daily chat, I do not know what it is, but Beckett has confirmed, through that they will be making several announcements at the event. I am low on the food chain and I do not want to know, but I hear that ComC, my employer, is making an announcement or two at the Mint Collective. I also would not be surprised if Topps makes an announcement at the Topps Fanatics makes an announcement at the Mint Collective. What it is could be anything. It could also be that every player on a Topps card at some point, every player that there's approval for from the player, you could have a special, like Willy Wonka card where you get to do something directly with the player.
That'd be really cool.
Wouldn't that be cool that every single player that
they kind of have that in a
do.
sense. They have the follow, like the social media follow cards now on what Big League or something like that they introduce.
Right.
Which I mean, that's pretty innovative. I enjoy that within a product. I mean, I'm sure kids are going to be chasing that, and even some adults want to get those follows by athletes.
So I would think if you're going to do something really good, you come up with a way to really. I mean, granted, not every fan can be involved, and I get that. But every fan has a chance to get involved. And wouldn't that be cool that, in some product, some affordable product, not like the national treasures of the world. I know that's Panini, but, Traps Transcendent, instead of that, in basic Topps, they make enough basic Topps. So it would be quite a chase. You get the thing where you can, in some way, meet. In Texas, you get to meet, let's just say, Adolis Garcia. In Florida, you get to meet. You got the
Randy
Luis Reyes.
Yep, we meet Randy.
Meet Randy. Yes, Randy is Randy's like the biggest big time player right now. He
is.
Well, Topps has kind of done that before.
They did that with their
years. They had that decade celebration where they inserted tickets
honestly,
in the packs.
Panini does that too with Player of the Day. You pull the card, and then you get something. If you pull who the Player of the Day is, and you're in the store, you pull the card, and you have a chance, and the store gets to win an appearance by a player. So maybe that's added too. I think that's what I would do. If that's what that would be like the dream. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I'm personally, I'm not getting my hopes up all that high for this. I mean, I remember, I think it was at the Baltimore National, 2010-ish.
2010 is correct for the first
where Topps. It was the first year that Topps started doing that Q&A session where they pretend to listen to collectors. It's a big dog and pony show where the same people show up every year.
But people got
the same questions. Topps gives the same answers. There's always the one guy who asks about Santa Claus cards. But I think it was at the one in Baltimore, the first year they did this. Clay was so excited. It's like, we can't wait to unveil next year's Topps baseball. It's going to be a game changer. And then 2011 Topps baseball came out, and it was kind of the same product that it was before. There wasn't that. They did add more gimmicks to it. So
I will say the Diamond Anniversary set is really, really cool.
Yeah,
compared to what other parallels were before then. I mean, Black's iconic, obviously, but pulling out a card that has diamonds everywhere, and also their promos that they had, as well as like the one-of-one cards you could get online with actual diamonds embedded in them. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff that was going on.
Those weren't cool, but the rest of the product really wasn't all that game changing.
I will also say about the Topps, we'll call it meet and greet. That's where Brody the Kid made his name.
Yeah.
He asked the question, how would you like me to work at Topps? Made him an instant hobby legend. So things do happen even there.
I stopped going to it maybe like 5 years ago because
I've never gone to it, so I probably
really you're not missing much. So
I regret not going because I saw they handed out Julio autographs over there.
They do.
That's a nice $300 to $500 bill just to hand out just for a 30-minute session or hour session.
Yeah. Let's see here in the comments. Hi all. Okay. We got nothing else in the comments. Let's see. Did I miss anything?
You haven't missed much, but I think something else we wanted to discuss.
The hidden gems, where are they? Lots of theories.
They may be
So-
too hidden.
Yeah. So this kind of reminds me of, speaking of 2010 tops, I brought this card out because I wanted to show this to you. This is a card of Jeff Samardzija of the Cubs. And if you notice,
Is it the sparkle?
no, there's a picture photographed of Abraham Lincoln in the
Oh
background.
yes, he was not the only Cub. There were like Darwin Barney
were-
had that. in the
yeah, there were like
background. There were
four
four Cubs.
Cubs, but the thing is, nobody noticed these things, and then like 2 months after the product was released, I think Topps had to come out with this press release saying, well, we hid these cards, you didn't find them yet, but nobody seemed to care about this.
Well, in
And-
1991, ProSet snuck 150 signed cards of Lawrence Taylor into their set. But everybody was still hobby conscious, error conscious and conscious of this, conscious of that. And those cards were so hard to pull that nobody noticed. Sometimes you've got to promote the most obvious things first.
I had no idea that he had autos in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
I think an
that was my reaction.
autograph would be a little
This is the
more
best thing you
obvious
put in there.
than
You should
a
have
tiny
announced
little-
that first.
What does that run for now, anyways? The Abraham Lincoln.
I paid $350 for this card
I
like
think
2
it's
years
a
ago.
10
So
I think that's probably a $10 pure retail card. I will also say, speaking of Jeff Samardzija, he was a wide receiver at Notre Dame. He's the type of person you can put into an NIL set as a legend just because of where he went. Notre Dame's always had a lot of sets. But I mean, look, he became a Major League Baseball player, but they've had enough pro athletes that it's worth doing from just about anything.
Well, you could put Brady autos in there too.
True.
Like
Brady
not-
went to Michigan.
People would chase Brady autos all day long if they threw it in the product, and then people would rip it. And guess what? I have brand new people into the product. I mean, they said they're going to put Brady autos in baseball now, his Montreal Expos card. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
I
I
think they
mean,
were supposed to
anything
put-
you can do to pump up a product, and at least they're talking about what's going to be the best card. They're making sure you know what the best cards are.
Yes, that
And
is the hidden
that's
gem.
one of the points with Chris was saying is that nobody bothers to tell something because these cards are so tough. Were so tough to tell the difference. I've told the story on countless occasions, and it was like 1997 Donruss, whatever, or it was the set with Fractal Matrix. Chris, whatever set it was with Fractal Matrix.
Leaf.
Leaf Fractal Matrix, where they did the XX and XY and Z and ZY and ZZ, and they weren't saying which cards were tough. They assumed people were going to be breaking cases. When those sets came out, and I remember on eBay, it was the early days of eBay, cards that they thought were going to be the $100 cards were $2. Cards that they thought should be the $2 cards because they were produced so much was the $100 card. And eventually, the day before we went to press with our Beckett magazine, they finally realized we better tell everybody what the tough codes are. But that's the thing. It's okay to have surprises, and that's good. But make sure that if it's something really good, make sure you know about it, because you don't want somebody selling a really rare card for $2 on eBay and then finding out later they sold a $500 card.
So I think the only product that you should be able to do that in is Allen and Ginter, just because that product is based around gimmicks like that, like even like cracking the code every single year. Like the no numbers on the back that are numbered to 50, but you have to really know that this card is not numbered. Like they have so many quirks in that product. I think it's fine with there, but like standard base top set, you should be telling people.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, it wasn't a Ginter one year they had, it was a 2016, the wood cards that don't exist.
Something like that. That's another question people ask. Like, where's the wood cards at?
And there was the other year where they hid like one of ones inside the lid of the box, but didn't tell anybody. So a lot of people threw away the empty boxes.
That's a first. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's
So
actually
you had to
hilarious.
rip the lid open in order to see if you got. I'm like,
That's actually hilarious. I'm not gonna lie.
It's hilarious. But I was doing box reviews. Could you imagine if I threw away a card, put it in the recycle bin? I had no idea.
Oof. Imagine if there was like a good rookie in there too. That's a 1-1 that just never got pulled because of that. I mean, it's like the super factor Curry rookie. Apparently, that might have been thrown away. People were saying just because 2009 basketball was viewed as junk back then, and they didn't sell. All right, goodbye.
Yeah,
Well,
Topps was also pretty
speaking of
much a
cards
lame
being
duck.
thrown away, Ryan and Chris, you probably know the Hobby Legend story. Barry Halper, the famed collector, threw away one of the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth cards.
It's tough.
Nice to have that much money where you can throw away a card that's now $1 million.
I know. Well, not back then, but now, yeah.
Not back then, but yeah.
Well, anyway, gimmicks. Don't do things like this. Don't do things
If
where
you
you have
do
to
them,
read codes
tell
on the back.
us.
Just don't do gimmicks.
Tell us up front.
Yes.
It's okay to do it. Just don't do
well,
it where nobody notices it for 3 months.
Yeah. And don't structure your product where you need a PhD in mathematics to figure it out, like fractal matrix.
Yes.
So,
Because the people who sold them early sold them all wrong.
yeah. Let's see. We got about less than 10 minutes to go. Like I said at the beginning, there really wasn't a whole lot of news.
Well, no, but we did want to talk about the fact that last week there were a couple companies that announced they weren't major players, but they announced that was going to be, they were shutting down. Elite Card Grading, which is in the Austin area in Texas, and Dibs, which was like a fractional company. And Dibs had some high-powered investors give them money, I believe, last year. And the question can become, will 2023 be a year of not condensation, but a year of consolidation? Or is this just a little blip, on our way?
I think some more companies will fall. I mean, but it's like a lot of this really, really small ones. I don't think we can see any major players right now. But one thing I could see is some of the grading companies eventually merging.
Chris?
You said condensation. I almost thought this was going to be the year of condescension, but that's. I know I've mentioned this on Hobby Hotline before, but at the turn of the millennium, I had a job with a Silicon Valley startup, and the vibe of the hobby these last year to year and a half is kind of reminding me of what it was like in Silicon Valley in 99, 2000. You have all these startups that are loaded with VC capital, and you just know that most of these companies just aren't going to make it. I mean, the company that I worked for didn't make it. So the business model, a lot of them can't make it. Not all of them are going to. So the business model then, and I think the business model now is, let's see if we can get acquired by somebody and cash in that way, or we just hold out, take some losses now, gain market share, and eventually will turn out to be what Amazon became, but for the hobby.
Well, Chris, you and I are probably the only two people in the Hobby Hotline staff that have worked for a true start. Actually, Dr. Jim, you could say he worked for a startup since he started. So 3 of us, but I think in his case, he had other income too coming in. So, he wouldn't just do it without doing it. But you and I both worked for a startup. The startup I worked for was a place called Sports Information Database, which was a brilliant idea. The only problem was they were 25 years ahead of their time.
Before trading card database.
Way before trading card database. We should start trading card database. But because I could have just done it in my sleep in those days. But Chris is right. A startup, you're either looking to cash in, grow, or get bought out. and Sports Information Database was on the verge of being bought out until the company that was buying them out pulled the plug at literally the last minute.
Ouch.
Very aggravating. I literally found out I wasn't going to have a job to come home to and 30 minutes before the 85 National began. And I'm in Anaheim, and I have no job to come home to. That's a real joy. That's a real joyful show when you're behind the plate.
Were you in Anaheim for that company as well? Or were you
No,
just...
I was in Anaheim for me.
Well, I mean, like we mentioned earlier, that was a good networking opportunity though, right?
I networked very well there, but there was less to network. It was mostly dealers in those days.
When did the National turn from just all dealers though into what it is now, where it's like half corporate, half dealers?
It started evolving in the late 80s. A few corporates would start doing some things. By about 93, 94, it became much more corporate. And after about 97, 98, it started becoming more 50-50.
Yeah, my first National was 88 in Atlantic City. I was 14 at the time, and I remember that there was a small little corporate area. There were only about like 7 or 8 booths.
The big corporate presence at the 88 National was Score Sportsflex.
Score, yeah.
And Upper Deck was handing out some stuff. They were doing promo stuff.
But I don't think Upper Deck had a booth. There. They had like a table.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of on the floor.
Yeah. There really wasn't much corporate at the 88 National. And as I said, the 89 was a little more corporate, but it really doesn't get going until the mid 90s. And by the turn of the bus, Ryan, by the turn of the century, that's when it really starts becoming more and more corporate.
Yeah.
Until what we get basically where we are today.
So speaking of corporate, do you guys see Fanatics like building out their own version of the National? Or do you think they were just going to try to invest in the National or some bigger card shows? Because it just seems like obviously taking over the production of cards, and they're building out a live breaker app now, or live selling in general. It feels like the next direction is they're going to build out either multiple shows or have like a large show every year.
I think they're better off partnering with the local. I would love to see them partner with the people running the National. You know, the people running the National have all the deal. You know, have not all the dealers, but they have a lot of the old school dealers. That doesn't help them.
Do.
But they have a lot of new school dealers too. And Fanatics bring in some of the new school dealers.
I was going to say, plus they have the big shows too, because they have Philly, they have Chantilly, they have some of the bigger New York shows as well. And I think the third person has the Chicago show. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure, but that's the only concern is like if they do build out a show.
I think if Fanatics does get into show promotion, they can get into some of these big market, big city convention centers that I think the National is afraid to go to or can't go or can't afford to go to. I'm talking places like the Javits Center in Midtown Manhattan or
Chris, it's not that the National can't afford to go there. It's that for the National to make any money, you have to jack the booth price up to such an extent.
Oh, yeah. But I think Fanatics can afford to do that, though.
Well, the booth price.
They'll run it as a loss leader.
Well, maybe they run the fan fests and all. You know, to me, I'd run the fan fests, a fan fest each year for every franchise.
Well, they kind of do that now during the All-Star games, don't
right,
they?
But I'm talking about before the season. There's a Rangers fan fest in January, February.
Oh, like have that with cards?
Oh, yeah.
I know the Tampa Bay Rays, when I went to Fan Fest as a kid, they had like 1 or 2 card dealers there, but that was to the extent of that.
Wow.
But that would be cool to see.
Anyway, we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah. So, Ryan, I know this is your final show. You'll be leaving us. Unfortunately, you're always welcome back as a caller, or if you just want to sit in for a show. I guess on behalf of everyone here at Hobby Hotline, we wish you happy trails, and don't be a stranger.
I won't, and I appreciate it, guys. It's been fun. Like it was like a year and a half, almost 2 years on the show.
I will also tell you that at the National, the biggest event could be the Hobby Hotline reunion. We've had so many people be on the show. Just get the National Hobby Hotline event. Could be the biggest thing, could be the biggest party in the hobby.
There you go.
We'd have to book a bigger
And John
table,
Newman, since
though.
he's the boss, we'll make sure that he picks up the tab.
I don't think that stage can maybe fit all of the current and former Hobby Hotline hosts.
We'd have a room somewhere. We wouldn't
get a
exactly
room.
be.
Yeah, so.
We'll do a stage part, but we'll have a room somewhere.
Anyway, for Rich Klein and Ryan Nolan, I'm Chris Harris. Keep on rocking in the free world. And who's going to be hosting this week? I guess I should have done my homework. So this Saturday it'll be Drew, Logan, and you're on again, Rich.
Yes, I'm on again. I did Tuesday. Yes, I did Tuesday as a sub. It works well for me this week, so I volunteered to do both days.
And I'm going to be on next Tuesday with John Newman and Dr. Beckett. So anyway, see you then. Keep on. Oh, I did the keep on rocking gimmick. All right, we'll see you.
See you.